On a parlé avec Lynell Jinks, c'est le directeur créatif des jeux WWE 2K. Il travaille sur les jeux de la WWE depuis celui-là. Oui, il est là depuis pas mal de temps. On lui a parlé des DLC de WWE 2K24 qui vont commencer à sortir dès le 15 mai avec le pack ECW qui contient notamment CM Punk, les Dudley Boys, le Sandman ou encore Terry Funk. Restez bien jusqu'à la fin puisqu'on en a aussi profité pour lui demander si la foule de Backlash France pourrait un jour intégrer le jeu de catch, et vous allez voir que c'est possible.
So you are working for the WWE 2K franchise for a long time.
Yes.
And with your experience, do you have to be a wrestling fan to work on a wrestling video games?
No, it's definitely not a prerequisite. One of the things, I mean, it definitely helps, right, if you are. But one of the things that I always ask whenever people join the team is that they just bring their passion for whatever it is that they might have, right? So if, like, they love platformers, or they love, fighting games, or they love, just puzzle solving, right? Or problem solving. Like that's what we want. We want passionate people that respect wrestling, right? Like you don't have to be a fan, but just respect it. And I think when people end up joining the team, they kind of become wrestling fans, which is cool. So, but it's definitely not a prerequisite, but it helps.
And this year's of WWE 2K24, you have 5 DLC pack that you work on it, an ECW pack, a Post Malone one, Pat McAfee, and others. And how do you make the selection for this year's?
Oh man, every year it's a tough decision to like figure out who gets to be on disc, and then things change throughout the year, or we have access to certain superstars that are part of the legends. We're like, oh, that would form a cool DLC. And then, like, in the case of, like, say, CM Punk, who kind of joined the roster later in our dev cycle, we're like, man, like, it would be great to include him on disc. But, the decisions that we make with the WWE in partnership and scheduling to try to get this game out in time, it just didn't line up. So we're like, you know what? That makes the perfect, like, first DLC. So it's definitely something we work with the WWE on. And we're always constantly thinking about like what's going to go into a future DLC throughout production.
And this year's will feature 25 playable superstars and other bonus. And in your opinion, who is the most exciting superstars that you develop?
That's tough. I mean, if you look at every single pack, you're like, there's someone, at least someone that just kind of moves the needle a little bit more than the rest. And you're like, man, CM Punk, that's the big get for me, right? It's for other people, it might be Terry Funk, it might be, the Dudleys, or Sandman, right? For me, CM Punk hands down is that one on DLC 1. But if I go back and channel or ask my younger self from my teenage years, who's the guy, I would say DDP was my guy when I was young. So seeing him back in the WWE game, and with everything that's happened, I would say with the advancement of our game and graphics, graphically, I'm super excited for everyone to see like what we're going to do with him and just have him be available to go against, everyone else that we have on the roster now.
Since the last few years, you release 5 DLC per game. Is it a strategy that you plan to keep for the next years, or we can see some battle pass like other games?
We don't know, I mean, that's one of the things that we're always looking at the market and figuring out, like, what do people respond well to? Do people actually like this model? And that's something that I would always say, like, the market dictates those types of decisions. And we just kind of, wait and see. And I think, we'll see how this one shakes out. My guess is that, just based on the amount of superstars and what superstars we actually have this year for our DLC plans, I think our DLC is going to, knock it out of the park. So we'll see, so that's a curious. I'm curious to see what the discussions are next year when it comes to figuring out what the DLC plans.
Netflix is a new player in the video game industry, and with the arrival of the WWE on Netflix, is it a possibility to see a WWE 2K games or Netflix or another 2K games since Netflix tried to add some games on their platform?
Antoine, we're gonna have to hire you for our marketing department and like try to sweeten out that deal. That's something that honestly I didn't even think about. Like we're just like, oh man, what does the Netflix integration mean for the game? Like what kind of sponsorship or branding are they going to have in the arenas and things like that. I didn't even think about like the Netflix platform, but that's a great idea. Don't know if that's something that the higher ups are thinking about, but those are decisions that happen that I get notified about later on, after all the details are figured out, if that's something that people want to come together on.
Yeah, because it's a big contract between the WWE and Netflix, so I think it can be super cool to try something, a new mobile game or something. I don't know.
Something, yeah. Like I said, you should probably put in your resume to take two to be like, hey man, I got some great ideas for marketing.
Good. And for the next game with the WWE 2K25 in the horizon, will the game engine evolve in future edition?
Oh, it's always evolving. I'm blown away by just the advancements that we've been able to make since we've taken this franchise over. And every year it gets better. And, we have some engineers, once we wrap, 2K24, there's certain departments that can kind of go off and start working on like, R&D and things like that for the next project. And we're already seeing some cool stuff coming out of that department. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like, just seeing how fast we're able to integrate some of these, new technologies or, just new pipelines, new rendering techniques. Those are the things that excites me. So I can't wait to see, for me, like I would say like, a couple years, maybe 5 years down the line, like this game's not even going to look the same. Like it's just going to be just seeing how fast we're, innovating. Like you saw it with, the blood on the mat this past year. You're just seeing it like, with just our ability to like get performance in a state to where the game can still run at 60 frames per second with the ramp cam and things like that, right? So you're just the amount of detail that we're able to add just in a year's time, it just blows me away by this team.
And talking about new feature and new technology, do you think it will be something possible to see others commentary team from different language, like our French WWE team?
I know that's something that we hear at least once a year when we do our press tours, when we announce in the game. Right now we're just not in a place where we can support that. Hopefully one day we will be able to like scratch the itch in a smaller capacity to just figure out like what's going to take to do that. But right now, just seeing how much time and effort it takes just to get the 3-man commentary team in the game, along with all of the different support for the different modes. Like, it's a huge undertaking, pun intended. But it's definitely something that always comes up, and I'm hoping one day we can figure this thing out. But right now, it's just not in the cards.
And finally, I don't know if you saw Backlash France last week, and many people call it the best crowd ever. Do you think there is a possibility to replace the audio track with the crowd of France on the next update or on the next 2K games?
Definitely not in the next update, but it's been a conversation starter around the office. As because like to me, that's like a whole new way to present the game, right? Like that's a mode. That's a mode in itself, right? It's like, oh, select, the France crowd or whatever, right? European crowd. And, just looking at like how intense that was and the logic behind, like figuring out like, all right, what do they chant? What are they saying? And who's in the, like it's a whole system that would need to be designed to make it feel authentic, not like it was just kind of thrown in there. But it's definitely something that has started conversations around the office about like, oh man, how would we go about doing that if we wanted to? So, so we'll see. It's definitely a challenge because it's, our game does not sound, our game is based on what you currently hear on, non, Backlash WWE events. So, that's a totally different thing that we'd have to think about.
Yeah, it will be really great to see it, and thank you for your time. And we can wait to see the first DLC this weekend.
Oh yeah, thank you.